So, before I even started this channel, September of last year, I I think I have always felt compelled, even from years and years back, to document and preserve my thoughts and my feelings about books that I read. So, I've actually been writing book reviews to a blog, not vlogs, but a book blog at WordPress so many years ago. And the reason why I'm randomly bringing this up all of a sudden is because my final book for February is from an author that I already wrote two book reviews about, and she's an author that I consider perhaps one of my all-time faves. The first book that I have read from her is The Local Girls, and this book really started my admiration for her writing. And the second book review that I did for her was for The Dovekeepers. And this book, no exaggeration, is a book that belongs to perhaps one of my top 10 favorite books of all time. Here on Earth is the second book that I've read from her, but I haven't really written a book review about this because I'd rather not. So for the sake of nostalgia, I had been reading my book reviews about these two books from earlier this morning, and I think that's the nice thing about documenting and preserving your thoughts and feelings about books, because in a way they're like a time capsule, like a footage of what you feel as a reader from way back then. And that was 2013. And I don't know. It's a strange feeling, but wow. So anyway, the reason I am just really talking about all this is because I just really want to give a good picture of how excited and nervous and scared I am to finally begin reading this book, The Marriage of Opposites by Alice Hoffman. It's inevitable, right? That you would definitely feel a certain bias towards a writer that you really, really love. And at the same time, there's this instant and overwhelming pressure to really fall in love with the book. But you are unsure whether you would. And I really, really want to love this book. I hope that the weight of this pressure that I'm feeling towards it wouldn't crush my reading experience, but this is how I feel. so it's been 2 days since I started reading The Marriage of Opposites, and within that 2 days, I've actually already read 298 pages of this book, which means I really only have like, I don't know, 60 or 70 pages left before I finish reading this. So the decision to annotate and tab this book is definitely not a spontaneous choice. It's not something that I have just randomly decided to do when I selected this as part of my February TBR. I haven't made that decision when I purchased this book last year. As a matter of fact, when I finished reading The Dovekeepers in 2013, I have made a promise to myself that the next Alice Hoffman book that I'm going to be reading, I would definitely annotate and tab. So, to my 2013 self, you have kept your word. You definitely kept your promise. You have annotated The Marriage of Opposites by Alice Hoffman. So, good job to us. This is not the first book, though, that I have ever annotated. The first one that I have tabbed was Eleanor Catton's The Luminaries, which I have read last year. And this is one of my best and favorite reads of 2021. I think I'm gonna put a link somewhere up here for the reading vlog that I did for this book, because in that reading vlog I have discussed in detail the system that I have decided to follow when tabbing this book. And I don't know, it really sounds vain, but I'm quite satisfied with the system that I have made for myself. And the reason why I bring this up is because this is precisely the same tabbing or annotation system that I have followed for The Marriage of Opposites, and it really was handy. The best books are always the hardest ones to talk about, aren't they? It's always so difficult, so hard to put into words how mind blown, how impressed, and how in love you are with a book. And I thought instead of gushing about it, which inevitably I would be doing, I'm gonna read to you parts that I really love about this book using the annotation system that I followed. And I'm gonna pick parts that are non-spoilery, I hope. So I just really wanted to share with you, and I wanted the book to speak for itself about how powerful and how beautiful it is. Green tabs are for great scenes, so I tab parts of the book green if they contain great scenes. Scenes that are pivotal or essential, important in moving the plot forward. Something that I should definitely keep in mind of or remember. The orange tab is for parts that resonated with me the most. If other people tab their books based on the emotions that they feel, I lumped all the emotions under orange. So if a part of the story made me really sad, made me really happy, made me really angry, anything that made me feel so intensely, I would tab orange. So on page 28 of this book, there are parts here that I have tabbed both green and orange. And I thought I'm gonna read you those lines. By the way, it should be not a spoiler when I say that this is about a forced marriage, and I don't mean that in the rom-com sense, or the kilig-inducing rom-com arranged marriage type of romances that we're so used to seeing in Asian dramas. No, this is literally a forced marriage. something that the protagonist has no decision to refuse, I guess. So this part right here is the part when the father told our protagonist about the forced marriage. When my father told me the name of my betrothed, I felt the way prisoners must when the cage that holds them is slammed shut and the key in the lock is turned. There was a lump in my throat when I heard my fate. I thought of the map of Paris that I had memorized and my childish book of stories hidden beneath my mattress. I imagined a man I didn't even know coming into my bed. I would rather be at the bottom of the sea, but I knew I must go forward. Perhaps someone else would have begged to be released from her father's promise. But I had seen the ledgers and I knew that there would be no house, no garden, no comfortable life as we knew it if the business stayed the same. So in those sentences, you can definitely vividly see the emotions that are happening inside the protagonist's mind and the state of her emotions, right? The writing is just so gorgeous and something that really resonates with you, I guess, whether or not you are a woman, a young woman who is being forced to marry someone. You can definitely picture her pain just by reading those sentences, right? Now, yellow. Yellow are for great dialogues. So, I tab parts of the book yellow if they contain really well-written lines or, the quotable quotes uttered by the characters, especially if it's about a banter or a really important conversation that took place. There's a part right here at page 41. This is a conversation between our protagonist and the man that he's forced to marry. And I think it really shows how headstrong her character is and how much she wants to still gain control over the things that are happening in her life, even when it feels like life is taking that choice away from her. When you think of the woman who is your wife, I will not expect you to think of me first, I told Monsieur Petit. He kissed me on both cheeks as a father might have. Justine would have been disappointed. She would have wanted him to kiss me on the mouth and place his hands on my waist and draw me near. But I was pleased and relieved. I was so young, I believed that when it came to a marriage, there could be matters more essential than love. So we have an agreement? I said. He laughed and looked at me. You would have been a good businesswoman. But such a thing did not exist in our world, not unless it came to making a marriage that would benefit all concerned. I'll make a good wife, I assured him. One you won't have to love. Now, the blue tab. The color blue I have reserved for great insight. I tab a page blue, or the sentences or parts of the story that contain, something groundbreaking, a lesson, or a revolutionary thought that I'd like to ponder more or reflect upon. A new way of looking at the world. And I love it because this book has a lot of blue tabs, which says a lot about how much this is really expanding my horizons, not just as a reader, but as a human being. So in page 67, there's one short, brief part where our protagonist says, people judge a girl's worth in many ways, but one must hope they do not include any judgment of the deeds of her father. It really speaks of how sassy and how sharp her vision is of the world and her society, and how she really scrutinizes the way the people around her behave. And I don't know, it's just so powerful that we get such a very striking and strong, powerful point of view from a woman who definitely knows her worth. And finally, the pink tab, which I think is, I don't know, I might be biased, but it might be my favorite tab because pink tab is for great narrative flex or great writing flex. I would tab or annotate a page pink if it contains really gorgeously written sentences. Parts of the book that I think the writer really flexes how great of a writer they are. Sentences that really make me so envious and jealous of their writing skills. The pink tab is really not necessarily a great scene, doesn't really have to be a great dialogue or conversation, doesn't really have to contain a groundbreaking thought or lesson, or doesn't necessarily have to resonate with me personally, but it's just really good writing, brilliant writing skills. And on page 56, this is just one of the many pink tabs that I have used for this book, which really says a lot about how beautiful the writing in this book has been. And this is just really one of so many that I'd like to read to you. It's not the best, but you know, I just wanted to read to you something. It was a delight to feel like a child again, but it was impossible to stay in that frame of mind for very long. The wind was screaming, and the shutters at every window needed to be nailed close. Later, I took out my notebook of stories and added a storm in which goats and sheep were lifted out of a pasture and deposited on the other side of the island, still chewing their cud. I wrote about a woman who was left behind and did her best to return to the moon, even though every storm could take her no higher than the treetops. When the center of the storm was above us, there was an odd quiet that was even more frightening than the howling of the wind. I wondered if God was above us and if he could see our love and our fear. I truly wish that I could read the whole book to you because I couldn't recommend this enough. Alice Hoffman's writing just touches the heart and the mind in a very unforgettable way. This is why I love her writing so much. It's such a good portrait of women. I said that in my 2013 review, and I still stick by that truth. What, 9 years later? It's crazy. I finally finished reading The Marriage of Opposites by Alice Hoffman, and you know that feeling when you end your month with the best book on your TBR? Because, yes, that's exactly how I'm feeling right now. It's wonderful because I remember talking to myself on my February TBR video. I was threatening this book to be a 5-star read, and why am I even surprised? It is a 5-star read. The last page, of course, is tabbed the color pink for writing flex because it ended the way how I like my endings the best, my favorite type of endings. I'm not gonna say which is which, but I love it. I love it so much. You can always rely on Alice Hoffman to deliver character writing excellence. She's a master at fleshing out characters in the most realistic and magical way possible. How does she even do that? I've always wondered about that on all the books that she has ever written. But she just gets better and better and better as time goes on. And The Marriage of Opposites is not an exception, of course. She did it so brilliantly in this book. The story has been told in multiple perspectives since this is a multi-generational tale of interconnected people, families, and different eras. But I just love it so much that the main perspective has been our female protagonist, and she's the only one who has a first person perspective. Everyone else are on the third person. And there is another one, which is her son, and they are the two, I would say, the two major characters in this book. And what I like best about the two of them being highlighted a lot in this book is that they are the two most likable and unlikable characters. Both of them. They have really great qualities, but they're also really annoying and so frustrating, which really added to the realism aspect of how their characters and personalities and behaviors were written. Alice Hoffman has written the two characters so well. And last but not the least, the nostalgia from when I started reading this book has never ever faded all the way until I finished reading this. Because in my head, I always just couldn't get over the fact that it's been nearly a decade since I last read a book from her, the Dovekeepers. And I think in the same way that her book back then has come to me at the right time, this book has come to me at the right time too. So, yes, definitely the best books coming at a perfect time is such a delicious feeling. I am so happy that The Marriage of Opposites ended my February, because that's about the most amazing way that I could wrap up the reading month. If I am reading romance, I really wouldn't have it any other way than seeing love in a multi-dimensional point of view, seeing it for all its flaws and all its magic and everything that it does to humanity. My heart is satisfied. I truly hope that you've encountered great romance reads this month. And as always, thank you so much for watching this video. Here's to never falling out of love with books. Thank you so much, guys.
See you on my next one.